She judged you before you spoke. Her brain just ran the facial symmetry scan. Your orbital depth equals authority. Your jaw angle equals respect. Your mid-face ratio equals value. Your maxilla equals sexual worth. You're not ugly. You're unselected by nature.
I wasn't fully attracted to you.
In a world of 0.5-second decisions, your face is the resume. Your bone is the bio. Your harmony is the hierarchy.
My pain is constant and sharp, and I do not hope for a better world for anyone. In fact, I want my pain to be inflicted on others. I want no one to escape.
Politics is personal. It often stems from people's petty resentments. The high IQ, low-status individual typically gravitates towards leftism because they resent capitalism. But intelligent, downwardly mobile white guys are increasingly drawn to the online right. They resent being gaslit about their privilege when their standard of living is deteriorating. While understandable, this frustration often festers into a crab bucket mentality. A large contingent of the online right take pleasure in dragging each other down. Anyone who tries to make money is a grifter. Anyone who tries to better themselves is a self-improver. Anyone who starts a family is a contemptible wife guy. Nothing is possible or worth doing at all. Every conceivable course of action is gay and futile. The only solution is a final solution. Billions must die.
The new youth, the new generation, which remembers the mighty past. We say that England is not dead. We say, and I ask you to say with us, lift up your voices in this great meeting in the heart of England. Then go all the world and message, England lives and marches on.
You know, like, you need to understand that I would argue that sexual differentiation in a species just means that you're going to have to live with the reality that that being male means that you have been given sort of a disposable gender status.
Men are the disposable gender.
Yeah,
like, you're designed to be disposable. That's why.
In other words, men are supposed to be a way for really advantageous mutations to populate in a population really quickly, to expand. So you if you are suddenly a uniquely fit male due to some weird interesting mutation, can spread your genes immensely far throughout a population, arguably. Whereas, if you're somewhat mediocre, you won't. So overall, the population benefits from only a very small number of men who have the best traits, making sure that those traits are passed on. Mm-hmm. Everyone benefits. Whereas women are more the substrate on which things are going forward.
So much fucking discourse, right, guys? So much fucking gender and political discourse. All right, here's the setup, guys. You know me, Jord, your professor against the dark arts, in defense against the dark arts. I should get that right if I'm going to open with it, huh? You know me, I'm a bit of a fucking kooky weirdo. I believe in the placebo effect. I believe in the power of belief, of faith, magical thinking. I believe in racial identity. That's a fucking unpopular and uncommon one these days. I guess I believe that, like, one man or maybe even a group of men can, through their collective will, shape humanity, change humanity. With me today is a dude called Collective Dismal. Oh, and a couple of his mates. And Lewis Wayne. Friend of the show, Lewis Wayne.
Yeah, sorry. I have no idea what we're doing right now, but I just checked my messages and saw your
It's cool, dude. I'll talk you through it. Now, Collective here, and of course, I'm assuming his friend Sigma would be Blackpilled too, right, Collective?
I've been referred to that way.
Collective, tell me if I'm doing you justice here. Collective believes in the black pit, in total collapse, in billions must die. Collective, am I right in thinking that you're not a racial person? You don't really believe in race or culture or, you know, demographics or destiny?
Total
anything?
No, I absolutely believe in the work. You could call it like raceology or scientific racism. Like, I believe it's rooted in differences. Yeah, between groups. Sorry, go ahead.
No. So for you, maybe it's that the black pill just goes one step further than that. It's not so much that demographics are destiny, more that like our collective destiny is just we're all fucked. So that at a certain level, the race stuff doesn't matter, or you think it matters as much?
No, I think there's different ways you could approach like racial identitarianism, and I think most of what you'd be likely to encounter online in places like Telegram and Twitter, I would call it kind of like plebeian racism. It tends to have like a bit of a populist overtone, whereas I think I'd be more of an elitist about it. Like I believe that certain races are better than others based on like functionality and not necessarily like some essence they possess or whatever. So say a white person were to exhibit all of those traits in a black that I find so distasteful, then I would hold them together. Like I wouldn't
you believe in like the Yawkey version of racism, where it's like race is more spiritual, and like a black man physically can have the spirit of a white person, vice versa.
No, not even.
No,
I don't have any.
I think.
Yeah, I'm a naturalist. Like I'm not an esotericist. I read Imperium, didn't like it.
So this is exactly the reason the basic setup here, guy, just for you, Lewis, and I guess for the broader audience, right, is that I believe in a lot of woo-woo stuff, right? And I believe that like race is really the only thing worth being blackpilled about. Collective does not believe in any woo-woo stuff, if that makes sense. He's quite a nihilist. He's quite like a blackpilled in what I would consider to be a very materialistic sense, although he may disagree, right? And then on top of that, he's kind of blackpilled about everything. So I first got introduced to you, Collective. I didn't really even know that the black pill community existed. I kind of found my way in through the Lux Maxes, if that makes sense. Like I was following some Lux Max people, and then I realized, oh shit, there's an entirely broad community. Then I kind of found people like you. You are what I would consider to be like a thought leader, whether you like it or not, in like the black pill space.
Wait, so by the way, I'm like new, like Collective. I know you've been in my chat for a while.
I know you for sure.
Yeah. But like, I haven't ever like actually seriously engaged like with you. We just haven't really talked that much. Like when you say black pill, are you talking about like do you do like looks maxing? Do you like do hard looks?
No. This would be the what I would call, and again, Collective, correct me if I'm wrong here. This would be what I would call the philosophical side of the black pill. The looks maxing is more of the day-to-day shit. There's various forums, incel.is or whatever. There's the incel subfaction. There's the looks maxing subfaction. This is different. This is like an how would you describe it? I would say philosophical. This is the meta behind the black pill. If that makes sense.
I don't own the title of a black pillar. I think the reason that gets attached to me so often is because I sort of do like a bit of an autobiographical thing on YouTube, and it just so happens my life it hasn't necessarily followed the nicest course, and so if I'm describing my life, it's going to come across that way. But when it comes to like my theoretical positions, I'm kind of an optimist. Like I'm a meliorist. I believe in eugenics. I think things are going to work out.
Radical global depopulation, no?
Yeah, because I think it's a pyramid scheme, right? Like I think eventually we'll move to something more like ants, where they can command their demography. I don't think that just perpetuating like an infinite growth model of human birth is like Malthusian sustainable
or advisable. Yeah, no, in a way, I would agree. But it's kind of like, well, I don't know. See, maybe I've read you wrong. I see that you got a chat of some like die-hard fans, and to the point where your chat has been deleted twice or banned twice off Telegram since I've been in there. Both times, random people have just popped up in my DMs and sent me messages. Like, people love you, and you clearly like run this kind of, I would call it like an anti-community. And the running theme through the community of people who seem to follow you on Telegram and on YouTube is that they are overwhelmingly black-pilled. And for me, I find it interesting because, like, I think there's a lot of stuff worth being black-pilled about, right? I think, like, that we live in really depressing times, but I also fully disagree. That's why it's interesting to me that you don't identify with the actual term, with the label, because I think it's like it can be a very much a self-fulfilling prophecy where people who have a lot going for them kind of talk themselves into it.
Well, I'm an anti-humanist. I do kind of even agree with people like Bill Gates and like the WEF, where they're willing to just designate like the overwhelming majority of people as eaters. Like the cognitive decline of people, like it's kind of apparent. And so in one sense, I'm an optimist, but I'm probably set for depopulation, you know.
That sounds so pessimistic. That sounds so bleak and pessimistic.
Well, I mean, you're gonna get what you want. Like we're heading towards depopulation certainly within the next century or so. So you've basically got what you want in the bag, I think.
Okay, that's interesting. And what about you, Sigma? Are you coming from the same kind of world? Are you coming from the same kind of perspective? I just want to make sure everyone's like roughly introed here.
Is my mic working all right?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
A similar view, I suppose. I'm definitely endorse the viewing of the world this way. I find it very useful, right? To know that clip, that was brilliant. I love it. Something like the clip, your intro, the one with talking about male disposability.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Oh, it's great. And I love it because it lets people know, like, this is how part of the world, or probably most of it, does see you. It doesn't make it true in the conventional sense, but it does let you know something about yourself, right? When you're exposed to such a message.
For me, this has always been the difference between the red pill, quote unquote, and the black pill, right? In that the red pill is knowing these unfortunate, uncomfortable truths about reality, female hypergamy, male disposability, and maybe using them to your advantage, using them to game the system. If only 10% of men are getting laid, I'm going to put myself in that 10%. You know, it's easier to fake being in that 10% than it is to actually be in that 10%. Maybe there's a way I can cheat the system here. Like, you know, you can just do things. For me, black pill is like, well, I know these uncomfortable truths about the world, and so I'm just going to spiral now. These uncomfortable truths about the world give me license to do nothing, to be nothing, to wallow in my own despair and like sort of petty self aggrandizement. And then like that will in turn create the world. It's like, it is very much a self-fulfilling prophecy in that sense. That's kind of where I'm coming from. So in that sense, would you guys call yourself black pillars? Like, do you think, what utility do you see in it past just knowing the uncomfortable truth, I guess is my question.
What was that quote by Yaki where he said, if pessimism is for fools, something, realism is the way to be? I kind of would take that line. Like, if you're just trying to make the most accurate description of the state of affairs, and it happens to be the case that it's very gloomy, right? We're going through like this big demographic bottleneck this winter, and yet most people are assuredly not going to make this cut. And so you're hearing people that are dying, essentially, like spiritually. They're just, you know, perma-rotting. They've been totally atomized. Like, it's a grim situation.
Again, on the surface, I have to agree. Like, but then is there no silver lining you can draw from this? Like, a lost, atomized, lonely population is a population ripe for spiritual rebirth. A population that's completely, you know, like, isn't this a cycle that we all have to invariably go through? What I'm saying is embracing it making it worse? Is it making it happen quicker? I guess from your perspective, you don't really care. Then that's kind of what makes it interesting talking to someone like you. But do you see what I'm saying or not? Do you think it matters?
Well, it comes down, I guess, to whether you see things in terms of like individuality taking precedence, or like individuality being like a subsequent kind of thing from a group. Like, and I think even people that espouse like this racial allegiance, they're still very individualistic. That they wouldn't actually be willing to die.
100%. A lot of the Gen Z and millennial racism that you see on the internet is performative. it's for clout in internet circles. People don't live like this in their real life. They don't function like this in their real life. It's completely an online conscious behavior. It's not like some instinctive blood memory thing like the racism of our ancestors. White people are innately not racial, really. They have to kind of be taught or be forced by living in major metropolitan areas to think racially. But in the same way, I would say the black pill isn't a default way of thinking for most people. Okay, can you guys just explain a little bit about like your personal situations without doing whatever level of doxing you're comfortable with, like where you live, how fucked it is where you live, why it's fucked where you live, and how you got into the black pill, like how you became black pill, so maybe the audience can wrap their heads around it that way.
I guess I'll go ahead. Yeah, I live in Canistan, and I live in the greater Toronto area, which is like New India, essentially, and it's very bad, right? All the food is poisoned. Everything's poisoned. The water's poisoned. It's all depop.
Brampton, Ontario. I've heard terrible things about this town called Brampton, Ontario.
All the food here, you can't even eat. Like some days I'll just not even eat anything to give my body a break from the poison. And it's there's no jobs here. I just landed a job like last week, but it gives maybe 6 to 12 hours a week. I live with my parents. It's really bad. It's a bad place to be.
And I guess and what about you, Sigma? Your kind of situation echo that?
Yes, I hail from the southwestern United States, Arizona. Live in the bigger metropolitan area here, and I'm a 40-year-old retail bachelor.
Okay. No, gentlemen, I don't want to seem... You're older than me, Sigma. I guess collective, we're around the same age, like early 30s, mid-30s. I don't want to be giving you advice. I don't want to be patronizing. My viewpoint of being so, should we say, delusionally optimistic comes from the fact that I've had a very easy and cushy life in some respects, you could say. So I'm not, this isn't coming from a place of judgment, but just throwing some ideas out there that just to see to what level at which you...
No, please judge us. Please.
Yeah, no. I just want to see to what level you guys have engaged with the simulation that we live in, rather than just accept that you're a level 1 wizard in a world where you need to be a level 10 to progress to the next. So what I'm trying to say is like... have either of you tried geomaxing, aka leaving the country? Have either of you tried fraud, i.e. putting a degree that you don't actually have on your curriculum vitae and sending your resume to a bunch of people and just, you can just do things. You can just lie and say you don't have to work in retail. You can just lie and say you have a degree. And you know what I mean? How hard have you guys pushed against the bounds of what the simulation is trying to do?
Oh, that's less interesting. But yes, I have lied. I've embellished over time. Probably not to those degrees, but here and there. Especially to women.
What's more interesting? What did you mean then? What did you mean?
I mean, I think it's more interesting yes, you could fabricate and embellish your life, right?
Oh, you mean there's something romantic and authentic about being the guy who works in retail and being like black, is that what you mean?
Within this context, right? Limited context. I think here there will be those who appreciate
techniques. You have done those techniques and tricks, but mainly with women, you said.
Mostly, yes.
And you found them to be effective.
Very.
Guys, listen. Even the black pillars will admit you can just do things, guys.
Yeah, you can. You can just lie to them. You can lie to everybody if you want, and it works if you're good at it.
But you seem to have some kind of moral. There seems to be some implication underneath what you're saying, like some moral thing of like you actually think it's better and more real to kind of live. Okay. I get what you're saying. And how were you guys introduced to the black pill? How did you find these communities? Obviously, I understand why your lives would resonate with it, but when did
I wasn't introduced to it. I was born.
I was born in the darkness.
Have you considered like just hitting yourself in the face with a hammer repeatedly?
Thanks, Lewis. Appreciate your input. Noel, fascinating comment in the chat, buddy. Thanks for joining. You said something like people need to understand the difference between the active black pill and the passive black pill. Let me pull it up here. I don't want to get
Oh, yeah, that's true. I fuck with active black pillars to the age.
Yeah, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It's a play on Nietzsche's idea of active versus passive nihilism.
Yes.
Okay, so for me, a level 7 like retard who only studied philosophy in high school, can you explain to me the difference, like in Nietzsche's thinking and in what you guys are saying? I don't understand.
Yeah, sure. So active nihilism is basically involving, like embracing meaninglessness by actively creating your own values and purpose, versus like passive nihilism involves just sort of succumbing to despair, like resignating from the world. So like to Nietzsche, the last man is like a passive nihilist because they just sort of submissively accept life's like futility and just kind of live for comfort. They're not really thinking about why they're living, versus active nihilism is kind of like looking at that emptiness in the face and then overcoming it by creating values in its own place.
Nothing means anything, that's base because I can make my own meaning and now I'm the king. Okay, interesting. Would you guys, how would you collective, do you feel that you fall into either of these categories?
I think pill theories are kind of crude. Like I sort of tune out when people are, I'm this pill, I'm that. It's just kind of like, I don't know. I don't.
Well, philosophically speaking, because collective, you really know your shit about this. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I go into your chat, it'll be like late at night because of the time differences, and I'll go in there and I'll understand like 25%. I'm not a dumb guy. I'm like a midwit, like 120, 130, but I'll understand maybe 25% of what some of those guys, like Malthusian and guys like that in your chat, who are just talking about like Hume's fifth theory of this dialectic or that shit. It's like there is a whole philosophy that you guys have behind you. You're not just blackpilled for no reason. You've thought about it and come to these conclusions. So like, do you want to explain a little bit about your philosophy?
One of the big turns for me was when I came across Hell by the Dashboard Light. I'm not sure if you guys or your like listeners
no
familiar. Very kind of underground niche figure on YouTube, but he punched way above his weight, and he presented this as like a demographic reductionism. There's just more males than females, and all social ails and issues are kind of downstream from demography. Even things like economics, they're very much downstream from these like brute quantitative analyses of the demographic climate. So in a certain sense, you're not going to be able to get around the fact that, for a number of reasons we could get into, but there's just way more males than females in the current.
Like 1% more men than women.
Would you say that in terms of the West is like one of the biggest demographic black pills, the gender imbalance?
But the thing is, like, statistically, isn't it like, aren't men just like 1% like likely to be born instead of women? It's just like slightly.
No. So the number just at base is at least 107 to 100, but then you factor in other things like cut off because women live longer, right? So when you select for the ages they don't reach parity usually until around 40. That's when you have 1-to-1.
Okay,
so
sure. Women live longer, but like dudes kill themselves and die and act like dudes are way more likely to die at young.
So there's a few factors here. And sometimes it can take a while to like really get this out, because it's not reducible to like any one causal thing that you can attribute it to. But number one, people move around a lot now. That wasn't a thing even in the past, like even 100 years ago. People were more or less like the demographic layout within a nation's border were fractal. So if you looked like at the local level, this would kind of resemble the state level, the national level. Now people are all over the fucking place for work, for school. So if you move to a given locality, right, just because of the job opportunities and the kind of infrastructure there, you might have 15 males to 1 woman in this particular township.
Okay, that's true, but like, I'm not talking about like that's absolutely true. Like, there's
get into the China and India and these other places like Azerbaijan.
But for China, that's because of the one-child policy, and for India, they have
sure
they're more like. Okay, I'm not talking about worldwide. Like, okay, yeah, sure, there's probably more women worldwide because of because of just sexism, or you'd want male children or whatever. But like, in Western countries, at least, like in America and Canada, it should be more or less 1-to-1, right?
No, not even remotely close. So when you look at males having been prior to the 20th century, they were vastly overrepresented in infant mortality. We've pretty much overcome that filter. So these males do live out their lives. The Fisherian ratio was a mechanism that Ronald Fisher postulated, which is to explain how the sex ratio within a species remains kind of at parity. And it's been completely blown away through. It can take a while to sort of go through like the reasonings for this, because there's many of them. but it's
okay.
not even remotely close.
Okay, but like, what does the male to female ratio look like in Western nations?
It's very hard to say. You can look at, like, say, for example, you have a nation the size of America where there's like 350 million people, let's say. And so you look at an age bracket between the ages of like 0 to 4, and you'll see a number on a population pyramid like that. There's 0.2% more males than females between the ages of 0 to 4. What is 0.2% of 350 million? It's a very large number. And that same number, it carries out until females are past their fertility window. Like, it doesn't reach parity until at least 40, at which point, you know, there's more females typically, to account for things like you said, the excess male suicides and drug overdoses, things like this. But also too, you look at, like, a lot of women are just, they're in dating limbo. Like, a lot of them are just not even in relationships by choice, things like this. So it's
certainly they're like in limbo, but I'm saying, like, hypothetically, there are like women out there if you want to pursue it.
But okay, put it this way, just to put my final point on this, like, when you look at really large nations, for reference here, somebody get a calculator, right? 0.2% of 350 million, right? You're talking about
2% of what? 350 million.
350 million, right? What's 0.2% of 350 million? It's gonna be a large number, something in the 100,000.
700,000 women.
Oh, okay, right. So
yeah, but like,
let me just make this point.
Like, we lose like fucking, there's like what, 50, 100? No, it's like 500,000 suicides every year. The majority of those are men. So like, that's nothing in terms of gender disparity then.
500,000.
Yeah, so he's saying it's after those suicides have taken place that the disparity just catches up, that it becomes even again. What I'm saying this is most important around women's fertile window. Obviously, it's not like a.
Hang on,
it's not a continuously thing of, do we have as many 50-year-old
women?
Let me just
put the kind of closing note. Let me just sort of put the closing, then I'll just move on from it. But if you take that figure at face value, right? You grant that there's 700,000, we said, more males than females between the ages of 0 to 4. Okay. And so then, assuming every single male got with a female, you would have this excess of 700,000, right? And you carry that trend up from 4 to 8, from 8 to 12, etc., up to 40. You're talking about a nation many times the size of Ireland's population in toto that would just be guaranteed to be excess males. Males can't share a woman based on like the physical anatomical structures, right? Polygyny doesn't work, or polyamory doesn't work.
Okay,
and so
so I was wrong. It's 40,000 men die in America every year of suicide.
Okay, so you have to a couple times over before you can catch up. But look, collective, there's a deeper underlying point here, which I don't think Lewis is necessarily speaking to, but that I want to bring up anyway, which is that let me just grant you all of that and assume that you're not necessarily wrong, right? When you tell me a statistic like there's 20 men for every 3 women or whatever, in my head I go, yeah, but how many of them are white? Yeah, but how many of them are me? Yeah, but how many of them are... Now, again, I practice delusional thinking every day, and I do know this.
I just looked it up. It said 80,000 people died of drug overdoses in 2024. I'm going to guess a majority. Like, it's just these things where it's like, I think there's enough evolutionary factors that are more or less keeping them. Like, because like just from between suicides and drug overdoses, that's over 100,000 men dying every single year. So like I just.
But you're talking millions, though. You're already talking. It has to catch up to millions, and that's assuming that every woman.
There's a danger here that we're going to get bogged down in the autism of the statistics, where none of us can actually prove it. We don't even know if government numbers are legit in this regard. So
sure.
It's silly to get weighed down. The deeper point I'm getting at is that why is it that the male mind, particularly, actually no, I know why it is. The young male mind is particularly geared around the thinking globally instead of thinking locally, or thinking in terms of the broader community instead of thinking in terms of their immediate situation.
men seem, I guess, because there's a bio-evo reason for this, like women look after the home, men look after the tribe in like a bigger sense. But like actually for a young man, like you can't, maybe the group cannot be helped in a sense, but thinking about these massive group problems can only be detrimental to you as an individual. Like thinking about these massive, does that make sense what I'm saying? Or
no,
it
like, does. It does, but you have to toe like a very careful line with that. So like that's what I would call like crack slipping, or slipping through the crack, where you would succeed despite this kind of like, it would be anomalous where you to succeed because of the kind of like global hurdles that you got. But it almost like, you don't want to become reminiscent of my mother, where I'm like telling her I can't get a job because they're subsidizing 75% of the wage if you're a fucking Indian in Canada. And then they go, well, don't worry about politics. You just got to worry about yourself. Okay, yeah, but where's the line, right?
Right. Yeah, 100%. You are both connected to the bigger picture and an individual within that, right? So it's like that, and this is what I mean. It's about taking that information and using it to your benefit. Do you like? Because for example, if I was you in your situation, I'm just going to be brutally honest. I wouldn't be. There's no way I would stay in a place where I've been replaced by brown people. There's no way I would stay there and not. I would be, if I was you, I would be, I don't know, somewhere where I could get away, somewhere in Latin America where it's kind of cool to be with a Canadian passport, trying to work online, like not trying to be around that. Like, do you know what I mean?
Here's the funny thing, though. I'm gonna cut you off just for 1 second. Then I'm gonna shut up because I'm talking way too much.
Yeah.
I tried to if you go back and listen to some of my videos, I spell this out. Like I tried a white flight, and my brother was supposed to be pivotal in helping me do this. And he ended up stabbing me in the back, my brother, who I had a great relationship with. And again, this is a lot of problem that is like unique to white people. This is why I almost do horseshoe into becoming anti-white at a certain point. Because you look at the overseas Chinese, they have WhatsApp groups where they just have these people will post rooms for rent in nice neighborhoods.
Jobs.
Jobs. It doesn't even go through the government. It's like, oh, just give me $1,000 cash.
If you go on Gumtree or Craigslist or like on all these English job boards, there's like all these, even on big ones like Indeed and LinkedIn, there's like postings that literally say, do not apply for this if you're not in England on an Indian visa. And because obviously it's completely against the law under discrimination, but because nobody's enforcing it, it's just like they can just literally employ their own all day.
But white people won't. White people don't give a rat's ass about that. They'll bite off their nose to spite.
See, this is the thing. I think that's changing. I think there is a growing sentiment amongst white people that is becoming more racist, quite frankly, more reactionary, more now. And these are the things that I would typically find white appealing. But you obviously don't share my optimism in that regard.
Yeah, and the nuance that would prevent me from sharing in that autism is that the people that become racially conscious like this are like myself. They're losers. They're people that are socially dejected,
low status, low
no power, no money. A lot of them are low IQ. Not all of them. There's tons of people that are like way above, but a lot of them are low IQ. Like. Because if you're just going about your life and everything's falling into place, you're getting the girl who's not fat, you're getting the job opportunities afforded you, all this. Why would you ever start delving into like racial politics? Why would you ever start? It doesn't even.
I did because it was like because it was taboo. Because it was kind of off limits, because it was controversial, right? And because I have the combination of like being relatively intelligent and being extremely curious, where I just like need to find out what's going on. And then you get dragged into this rabbit hole where it's like, you start debating people and you're like, fuck, no, that's true. That is kind of, wow, if we are all libertarian, we are all just going to have our kids get raped. Like you kind of like have these kind of like.
And I'll grant you that there is a certain type of person like yourself, and you just articulated, I think, pretty well, but yet there is a certain kind of like autistic person that despite not really having like bad options in the dating or the job market, they will still just try to chase down taboos because it stimulates.
And listen, a lot of it is a feedback loop as well. If I make racist content, people give me attention and they're like base, then I feel good about myself, and then I have another reason to make. By the way, guys, memberships are available on this channel. I just opened them yesterday. I'm just fucking around with content. Maybe I'll put some videos up. My point here is that like, and I guess actually, that's a really good point you make, because I am quite detached from it in general. Okay, This is a good question. How many people do you think there are in the world who think like you? What percentage of young, white, disenfranchised males do you think fall into this mindset? Or do you think there's such a thing as like the normie cell who doesn't even realize that they're in this bracket, but is still disenfranchised, lives at home with their parents, etc., etc.?
No one in the world really thinks like me, like I'm a special snowflake, but I think people will resonate with me. I think some people will there are more people than you'd think would resonate with what I'm saying.
Well, clearly, but it's just like this phenomenon. So I've followed your channel for like, I don't know, a good 6 months, maybe even a year now. And like, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you were around 9,999 subscribers for a really fucking long time.
No way, not even close. I think I topped out at 1,600.
60. Oh, sorry, 999. I mean, you wrote in this. How many channels have you had? Firstly,
I'm on my third one on YouTube.
Okay, so this one, the current incarnation, Collective Dismal 3, by the way, guys, you should follow him on YouTube if you can handle this amount of Blackpills. It's this one. I noticed that you got up to 999 subscribers, and then you kept going over and under and over and under and over and under for like an extended period of time. And I just thought, I was watching that. Every time I went back to it, I swear he was just on 1,000, and then he was back down to 999. And in my head, I'm going, this is crabs in a bucket mentality. In my head, I'm going, the people who follow him are like so niche and in their world that like the moment he gets 1,000 subscribers, they're like, no, I don't want to see him have success, or he won't be niche and black pill interesting for me anymore, so I'm going to unsubscribe. It was dark, like watching it was dark. So I just like, I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, do you not worry that you're creating this stuff even more by feeding into it?
Well, it was other content creators. I'm of the belief that it was other content creators that had me taken down. The first time it was a guy named Tantic Rule, and then another guy, it was Millennial Woes. I think they played a role.
Wait, Millennial Woes as in Colin from Scotland?
Yeah, I suspect that he had a role to play in the second channel of mine.
And why are he's a fucking black pillar himself. Why are these other channels trying to get you taken down? Because of personal beef or what?
Personal beef. I can only really speculate as to why they want to do that.
Okay, fair play. Sigma, just to bring you back to this for a second, what do you think the biggest black pill is in the West right now? Like, do you agree with Collective that it's that gender split stuff that he's talking about playing out over time, or?
Oh, well, I think that it's not just a current issue, but it's been an issue for quite a while. Female selection methods alone seem to cause a disparity, right, in male reproductive viability.
Oof.
So
you mean even with the drummer and selecting for shitter type of guy?
I mean that men would still be left on the periphery of society, even without, or even with the demographic disparity, right? That overpopulation. Right? Because women select biasly, right? They seem to have been doing this for quite some time. So men have been left out, likely for quite a while. It's kind of the
and you think that there's the long-term implication of this is going to be disastrous for the gene pool, presumably. Is that your point?
I'm uncertain about that. Traits are that's a tricky subject, right? Because we'd have to discuss like fitness, right, and how we deem things fit within a certain context.
How do you even measure that? Yeah, that's true. It's true. It's like fit for what world? Fit for living in a high-rise smart city of the future. Like, what does that even look like? I kind of get what you mean. Eudaimonian, is that how you say it? Welcome, Eudaimon. Nice. Hello.
Hi. Okay, so I basically just wanted to comment on some of the things you mentioned here, but I mean, you don't have to stop your current discussion for that.
It's a natural breaking point. Feel free to introduce yourself and ask questions.
Great. Okay. So first of all, I wanted to touch on this point with, say Chinese expats having groups where they coordinate, finding a place to live and so on in a city that they have arrived in relatively recently and so on. I would say that this is not something that, inherently is lacking from European people. I would say that it is rather that we have gone through a phase of deconstructing or kind of transferring that to the state in order to promote meritocracy, I would say. So it kind of becomes this act of enabling, people to function as an extension of the nation state at a certain point in history, and then you have kind of had this reversion from that ideal afterwards, where you kind of seek to go away from having a uniting culture outside of the like legalistic framework of the state as well. So you don't no longer have this like interplay where part of it is dedicated to the state and part of it to the culture, because there isn't, you know, a unifying culture in the same way anymore. And the second point would be like when it comes to the opinions of young white men, I think that you kind of have to differentiate between a sentiment and a more what can you say, like deep understanding of what something is on a philosophical level. Because I think that for most people, it is mostly a sentiment for, you know, something that they disapprove of today and something they would like to see more of. But you know, let's be real, most people don't don't follow this to like the full a full philosophy, and that is in a sense good as well, because it is, you know, delegated to a portion of the population to kind of have more of this leading role in the tribe, if you would like, and other people are more ready to what can you say, pursue that. And you have seen modern examples of this scaling up and you know, translating into actual action very quickly when you know, the right buttons have been pushed. So I would say like Trump is to some extent an example of that. Yeah. So that's
if I could summarize what you just spent the last 5 minutes saying, and say like you think there's still hope politically. We don't need to be blackpilled. The conditions and restraints that are making everyone depressed will eventually result in like some big political pushback. Is that what you're saying?
I guess to some extent, yes. So when it comes to this first point, which is I would say important, it is that, you know, I don't think that I think both sides to some extent overestimate how unique white people are when it comes to tribalism, right? So to some extent you could say that in the more supremacist camp, you think that there is something like like really distinct in this regard. And in the, like, you know, currently reigning camp, you think that white people are, you know, the cause of most ills in the world. Yes.
To your first point, I agree strongly that this kind of abhorrence to in-group nepotism was one of the catalysts for like European or like Anglo-American exceptionalism, but it's clearly not a real viable way to continue on now, and we don't seem to be course correcting. We've given it a lot of time too.
Yeah, every culture we could have exported it to, we did, and some cultures just have not adopted it and will never adopt it. And then it's kind of reached its maximum. Like, but that was a framework that was supposed to replace the nation state. You know, he was talking about the nation state before, and it's like when I think the people who envisioned globalism did not envision it to be like they multi-culty, everyone is beige, brown. I think when they envisioned globalism, it was like an Anglo-imperial globalism, and I think that's the problem, is that like the train went off the rails. But regardless, look, you can talk until you're blue in the face about why we got here. That's not the purpose of the stream. And as Claire, weirdly enough, says in the chat, the purpose of the stream is to not sort of sit around talking about how diabolical and bad everything is. Guys, seriously, go and follow Collective. When I'm in a bad mood, I'll be honest, Collective, I love your content, but I can't sit and just like I can't regularly dip in and out. I have to whenever I'm in a bad fucking mood, like if I broke up with a chick or if I had a fucking fight with someone, or whatever, I'll just go and I'll binge your content for like 3 days straight, and I'll watch like a bunch of the guys. I need to be in the right frequency, the right mind. But guys, if you want to get someone who kind of speaks from the soul and really understands what the fuck is going on, you should subscribe to his channel. The link is in the description.
I gotta make a confession, like, and I think this is just due to you being like humble or having too much humility. really know that you did content. I've known you for a while now, and I always enjoyed
Yeah,
our
yeah. I don't
conversations.
thought like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like I said,
Well,
the
what?
crossover.
Well,
I'm not going to get any followers from your group. It's a completely different.
well,
Type
what
of,
is this? Like, where? Okay, let me ask, right? Because I'm in StreamYard. I don't have access to YouTube unless
Oh
I'm
yeah,
I'm on a
I'll send
phone.
it to you. I'll send it to you. Yeah, I'll put it
Okay,
in
so
in
so
DMs.
what?
But like
How
I
many
have a channel like where I just like
how many people are watching us right now at this minute?
50 or something.
Okay.
So it's not
And
like
you
it's not a
speak,
massive channel or anything, but it's just like a fun. It's like it's kind of my shitpost channel, if you know what I mean.
Is it like pop politics or?
Man, I talk mostly, believe it or not, about like spirituality. I talk mostly about like, dude, mystic shit. Like honestly, like a little bit of like race, a little bit of like biology, but only where that stuff intersects with like being either a cult or being extremely controversial or taboo. Like I just talk about the shit that interests me, basically. If the CIA had a plan to like grow gnomes to farm mushrooms on the moon, then like I probably made a video about it. That's the kind of shit I'm talking about. But that's why that's why I'm grateful for you coming on and talking to me, because like we're not. Oh, put it this way, the stuff we do agree on will evidently be real and probably true and probably worth being pissed off about. But in my head, I'm trying to work out like to what extent, like, because obviously you're a black pill content creator, whether you like it or not, you have an audience. Do you not feel a sense of like audience capture? Do you feel like obligated to make black pill content for you?
Absolutely not. No, I could give a fuck if there was like 12 people. I just.
Okay, that's based as fuck. I love that. I think that's dope.
Yeah, I think that again, like, quantity never gives way to quality. So if you have 50,000 half-wits that are just useless subscribers in every way imaginable, they will never, ever be as valuable as having 15 people that just fervently help contribute, not just listen, but like actively contribute to the development of your ideologies and things like that.
No, that's fucking interesting. And like, are you going to write something? Are you going to like do like a, not like obviously not like a manifesto or whatever, but like surely you have a philosophical treatise.
I've written and uploaded some essays, but I'm not, I don't know. I'm a good writer. That's always been like apparent from when I was young. Not to brag. I mean, I sucked at math. I'm a good writer.
Video content. Yeah.
And so, but I don't know if that's like the move anymore. People move to Substack, and I guess there's enough of a demand there. I've never checked it out, but I don't know. I like to be able to like scream and like if I'm into it, right? Not forcefully, but if it calls for it, I like to put a little passion in it, and I think that's better than just reading a text.
No,
but sometimes the ideas that
so many times prove something, you know, like
yeah. Well, when the ideas are a little bit more they're a little bit more analytic, they can't really be conveyed verbally. They have to be sort of written down on paper and formalized and stuff. So there is a definite limitation to oral speech.
So I know this kid, right? His name is, well, I'm not going to dox his real name. Actually, I don't even know his real name, but he goes by, you probably know who I'm talking about. His online pseudonym is a drug. So he calls himself a drug. He's like 18, 19 years old. He lives in the UK. He's like incel. He's not a bad looking kid. I've seen him on VC. He like turns on his camera sometimes. 6'3", decent hairline. He's even got heterochromia, like 2 different colored eyes. He mogs in a lot of respects, except he's just chubby because he's lazy, like most kids his age. He's one of the most black-pilled people I've ever met. Like he's literally, it's over for me. I'll never get.
And again, he's not a Chad, but like just saying he would qualify as like an excess Chad.
Interesting. Okay, this is the phenomenon I'm trying to speak to you. So, because I'm noticing increasingly that the type of man that is getting put in the excess pile is actually not what would have been the same type of man that was in the excess pile previously.
Well,
some of them are going in there from female selection, and some of them are self-selecting in there before they even get a chance in the real world. So can you speak to that?
Well, think about the way that like overpopulation and the law of large numbers kind of puts a damper on exceptionalism. So let's say you have again, to use America as an example, you have a nation of 350 million people. Now, let's say you have a 140 IQ, right? And let's say you're in the top, that puts you in the top like 98th percentile of all peoples in that country. So you have 2%, right? These are just made up figures, but 2% of people. 2% of 350 million is still like a very large number. And a nation doesn't need you don't need 150,000 physicists or whatever. You can function with like a handful of them, right? And so you are extremely gifted in a relative sense, but in an absolute sense, it's kind of like the genius market is oversaturated, or the market for guys that are 6'4" is oversaturated. Yeah, they're relatively very rare, but there's so many in an absolute sense that it's like, what? Okay, you know what I mean? And so I'm in a situation too, like, not to toot my horn, I'm not a gifted intellect. I'm smarter than most people I would meet at like a factory where I'd have to go work, right? So you're in this weird situation where you're smarter than all the normies, but you're not smart enough to actually like crack slip into academia, because there's so many people smart.
Dude, this makes so much sense, man. Because
there's
you're
so many people that are so much smarter.
In a healthy society, you would be like a college professor banging your students and like having a great time, and everyone's having a great time. I totally get it now. Yeah. We're in the timeline where that's just
dude. There's two guys, dude. Not to cut you off. There's two guys in my chat, and I'll tell you who they are, like off air. If you're curious to know, there's two guys that are all American athletes.
Literally. I can believe it.
And they're just, that says
the gym cell thing. Yeah.
Not gym cells. No, not a gym cell. Like an I don't know. You're not from America, but all
you mean semi-pro athletes, actual fucking athletes.
Actually, yeah, all Americans. Sometimes those guys in like football, for example. Sometimes there's more talent there. It's more talent rich than the NFL is. Like you're not talking gym bros. You're talking elite level athletes.
That's crazy.
That it's just, how many good swimmers are there though? Like so many, even if they're only 0.5%, that's a huge fucking number.
And then of course they're trying to bang other athletes, so they're actually competing in this very small pool of people that they see all the time. And if they're not the best swimmer, they don't go with the pussy, because in that little sexual marketplace they have to be in the top 10%. Yeah, no, I get it.
Even a guy who deadlifts, because like I was trying to get into like strongman and powerlift, and I was very good at it. Like I'll always be the strongest guy at the barbecue, but I'm weak as fuck, man. If you go on Instagram, there's like 17-year-old kids that just benching my deadlift like it's a fucking
up to the fucking eyeball since birth. Yeah.
You're never gonna be exceptional, man, because it's just so many fucking people. It's so oversaturated and bloated.
See, I'm a massive believer that exceptionability is extremely relative, right? Like, and you do a study on, and women are so susceptible to this, maybe more so than men because of their level of suggestibility. You can take a bottle of wine and you can give it to a woman in a really shit restaurant, and then you can take the exact same bottle of wine, same packaging, same branding, same bottle, in a really nice restaurant, and she'll tell you it tastes up to 20 times better. Like everything is a matter of perspective. Once you realize that all of these actual status hierarchies are all just made up, then from my perspective, it becomes like, oh, sick, I can make my own one. Or, oh, sick, I can game it completely. Like, that's why I use the example of like, just put a degree that you don't have on your resume. You can just do things. It's like, no, you're absolutely right. You're not going to be exceptional. But who the fuck is? If you actually look at it, nobody's exceptional.
Even in that case, I've been doing that for the last, if you watched my video, I ended up going schizo, and I believe that I was blackballed from any kind of online job applications through their AI bots. I was putting down
all that shit is coming.
I'm a black homosexual with a fucking 4-year business degree now. Nothing.
I wouldn't employ a black homosexual with an MBA either.
When in Rome, right?
I do. Like I say, on the one hand, I do get where you're coming from, but like it's like I don't know the best metaphor to use, maybe, but it's like, to a certain extent, this stuff will be paralyzing. It will cripple you. You're a funny one, right? Because most guys complain about the fact that they cannot get a job. And yeah, you're right. The situation is shit out there for most people, but you, specifically you, actually have a job. Yeah, it's 6 hours a week or whatever, but like, and then it's like most guys complain that they cannot get laid. You're a guy who like talks publicly about the fact he has a girlfriend and then gets with other girls as well, like has kind of like, so you not only have women but have multiple sexual options. Most guys are blackpilled because they're out of the reproductive bottleneck and they're not going to have a kid. Not to talk about anything you haven't talked about publicly, you're about to become a dad. So it's like all of this stuff about, you're such a box of contradictions in a way that I could almost, and like you say, you're a power lifter, you're obviously, I don't know what you look like, but you're obviously a big guy. I wouldn't be surprised if you're relatively good looking. Why are you drawn to talking about these things?
Because theory is very like these are stance independent philosophic views or world views that I hold because I believe them to be sound and
But how
valid
can
and
you say
accurate.
to a bunch of people on a live stream like you're not going to be exceptional when by every one of those metrics you beat the system yourself?
No, not even remote. Like I'm totally dejected socioeconomically. Like
Okay, so money is your
yeah,
biggest.
these things are not. There's nothing glamorous about any of this stuff.
No,
I've
I just mean
talked about
that
my
relative to the population that you quite rightly say is going through a reproductive bottleneck. Look, most men in history haven't reproduced, right? If I get the numbers correct. So of course, in the future, when we go through this Klaus Schwabian crazy depopulation program, even less men are going to get to reproduce. But you're actually one of them who, by hook or by crook, has managed to knock up a chick and is an expectant father. Like, you know what I mean? So aren't you living proof that it's not necessarily a total black pill?
it has to amount like the production of life has to amount to something bigger in order to really have meaning. We're not groids, you know what I mean? We're not just like in this. Oh well,
You mean a
why do I have
family, a
kids?
community, some part of something?
This is why I agree with antinatalists up to a point where it's like there is going to be no point in reproduce. Like it becomes circular logic. Oh, I had kids. Why? So they could carry on the gene. Why do they need to do that? So they could have kids. Okay, well, why?
And eventually one of your great grandchildren gets to watch the sun burn up in a big ball of gas.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. Yeah. It becomes very just
that.
circular can kicking and the postponement of like realizing any kind of higher goal or purpose. It's always just indefinitely postponed. Like who gives a fuck if you had some groid kid that's just going to be like growing up to whatever, right?
I've noticed a very prominent overlap between the things you believe and the people who follow you and I guess what I would call atheism, but it's not really. It's more of like a nihilism. Like, what are your spiritual beliefs, if you have any? Would you consider yourself to be an atheist? Even philosophically, are you a utilitarian? Like in like this, I know it's difficult, but in the like most concise way possible. Like, what is it you actually like believe? You know what? Let's play the utopia game. I'm making you Klaus Schwab. You can choose to feed people the bugs. You can choose to depopulate people. Like, play it out for me. You're world controller. How are you taking us from where we are now to the future, and what does this got like what in your dream utopia, what does it look like?
Yeah, so when it comes to religiosity, I'm not an atheist, but I'm not a theist. Like I would take more of kind of like an ig-theist position. And obviously, yeah, I had like a keen interest in philosophy.
Guys in the audience, do you see what I fucking mean now about this? Is like, this makes me feel so dense. Did you say ig-theist as in IG theist?
Yeah.
As in you're ignorant of God, or what does that even mean?
An ig-theist, I guess, is just like sort of it's like more extreme version of agnosticism, where you don't think that like references made to God or something like denote anything meaningful. So like
right.
It's not really there's no definite description that you can like ascribe to God. So in a certain sense, it's like not even false, but it's literally meaningless. And then in that,
wow, that might be the most black-pilled take I've ever heard. That's insane.
So like I had this view even when I was very young, like before I had any interest in this, because I always thought I always thought atheists were really retarded too. I'm like, if God isn't real, then what are they like juxtaposing their criticism against? Like it's
religion,
like
and
it's
even
just dissolve the conversation. Don't even solve it. Just dissolve the conversation between the atheist and the theist. It's just gishgalop. Like it's literally nonsense. But then
your position is one that is a fundamentally atheistic position in that you
it's
basically believe. Yeah, non-theistic position in that you basically believe that we are accidental matter and that the universe is chaos.
Because I'll go on. Like I have taken a really keen interest in like the study of Western philosophy and like analytic tradition, especially. But I feel like a lot of the conclusions that was reached in that they converge on a lot of Buddhist and like Eastern notions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't esotericize or mysticize it, but I do agree with most Buddhist philosophic positions from like an exoteric kind of bent, like the arguments against essentialism and like Atman and stuff, like no self. I think David Hume's arguments against that are like pretty apt. And
if you don't mind me interjecting, I think it's like God's existence. Like, what do you even define by God? Usually, like, you can reject like the Abrahamic like conception of it, but then it's like, well, do you reject like the Buddhistic conception of God or whatever? It's just like you just have problems with the semantics of what we mean by God. So that's why like agnosticism as opposed to agnosticism is like a more, I think, sophisticated.
Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think so. Philosophically, it's definitely more sophisticated.
Because like if you talk to an atheist, usually like hardcore, like we were talking about on the Jordan Peterson stream, like they don't even really know what they're defining as God. It's usually just like the Christian conception of God. But
sure, yeah.
That's, I think, very easily rejectable, like post 1500. So like, but does that mean you throw like the whole basket out with it? I don't necessarily think so. It's more just like you have to really get the semantics down, but nobody can really even understand what the semantics are. So it's just like not even worth.
So I think you're completely right, by the way. I think many people have a semantic shift, and it really is only a semantic shift or a shift of perspective when they take psychedelics. I think they instantly go from being what you guys would call ig-theists to being just like soft theists because of like some kind of transcendental experience that they can't explain using words. Question, Dismal, have you ever taken psychedelics?
Yeah, so I've taken a lot of different things. I got tricked into taking Jimson weed once as a kid. I don't know. People don't call that a psychedelic.
I have no idea what that is, but that sounds sketchy.
I've taken salvia a few times back when
salvia divinorum, lightly hallucinogenic. Well, actually, incredibly hallucinogenic if you take it in big quantities.
Yeah, and that's kind of like a go big or go home. And I went
right.
a couple of times. Yeah, like you definitely.
But you've never done shrooms or taken.
I have, yeah.
Oh,
I've never taken acid. No, I've taken shrooms.
Shrooms.
I've definitely like had my bouts, and I do make kind of like a concession to these psychonauts. I always loved Terence McKenna and always return to those kind of. And if there were any alternative to my view that I would find viable, it would be sort of like a hippie, like. Yeah, I agree kind of with what you're saying.
Dope. Yeah, exactly. You're on the hippie racist wizard channel right now, but like Element, what's Collective's channels? Yeah, what is Collective's channel name? It's Collective Dismal, and it's at Collective Dismal 3 on YouTube. Like you should 1000% sign up. 6'2" Portuguese Chad, fresh off the boat in Brazil in the early 20th century. Imagine that. Guys, if you want to call in, you can. I'll open the phones a little bit. I don't know how much longer Collective has, but I wanted to do this, because his worldview is fucking fascinating. But if you guys have any questions or whatever, post them in the chat now. I'll ask them to him. Is there anything you guys want to ask each other? Noel, Sigma. How do you say your name, dude? You, Daimon? I couldn't pronounce your name. Apologies.
That was spot on.
Okay, cool. That's in the chat if anybody wants to. But that's and obviously that's such a fucking what do you call it? It's almost like a half-baked kind of like, oh, what have you ever taken psychedelics? Like, how could you possibly be nihilistic or materialistic if you've taken psychedelics? But like, no, I see how you, if anything, psychedelics might reaffirm.
But here's the thing. Here's my thing on it, right? Like, just because you took these substances to achieve an altered state, I don't necessarily think that it follows from that you're having any kind of like a veridical experience or some kind of mystical like contact with some deity. Like, I'm not saying that's not the case. I'm not saying that's like definitely not the case, but I don't see why.
From the definitional like assumption that like these deities, gods, demons, angels, whatever, these kind of like forces, whether or not they exist in and of themselves is kind of moot, because like the one place they unarguably do exist is in your mind. And then when you approach it from that point of view, like it is a semantic thing of rather than saying, like it's kind of hard to explain actually, because I'm aware that I'm talking to someone who's like much more.
Well, the thing is, like, I just don't understand how you would either confirm or confute that kind of a claim where people will say, well, I had this experience that was totally mind altering. Therefore, then they kind of go too far in their assumptions. It's like, oh, well, it was veridical. It extended beyond my mind, and I actually can. I don't know if it's not necessarily that you had the experience, but how to like understand that or how it's being construed. People are like, well, it definitely was like, they turn into these like galaxy tard woo-woo guys. And I think it's preemptive. Like well, maybe a neurologist can just fully exhaustively account for everything what you experienced. And that's all there is to be said about it. Your brain was just operating in a different kind of modality.
Go back to talking about your like utopia though, man. Like, how would you see the ideal society? Like, genuinely, I'm making you world dictator. When you depopulate, who is actually left over?
It's simple. Everybody that's bad, you just hang them. That's it. It's really that simple.
Good logic, good reasonable logic. Yeah. Well, who's bad though? By which metric? So, for example, if we're going to depopulate by 90%, which 10%? And who inherits the earth?
It's obviously at the end of the day, it's going to be arbitrary when you get down to it. It's like whose values, and then maybe you could try to like strong man like a might is right argument, and that's all. Like at the end of the day.
So wait, you're coming at this from the perspective of actually it doesn't really matter because it will sort itself out once the population is down to the size of like being balanced and being gender balanced, and that's more important for you than who's left over.
Well, I don't believe that like. This would be my big black pill, I guess, to people is like the plebs and the commoners. They're not part of the movie, right? And they always try to position themselves in some participatory role. You're a spectator. This is a great man's world. This is the strong man. And it's a demonstrationist thing. Like, if you think you're better than Napoleon, then nut up or shut up. And it's like, it just, at a certain point, you're just a pleb. Your ancestors were plebs. You're not related to George Washington or Isaac Newton. Like your ancestors were probably like white dick washers. They don't descend from nobility. They're not.
See, this
like,
is why you were anti-white before.
I'm not anti-white, but I'm anti-pleb, and like a ton of them are white, right? You're not like aristocratic. For sure. You're not an aristocrat. Like you might be. I don't know. I seen you. You look like.
I have both. I have plebeian and aristocratic ancestry. Emo Monk, question for Dismal. Would you ever consider engaging in ceremonial magic for the sake of achieving a transcendental experience which could factor into your worldview? Yeah, I guess.
If anybody can sell me on it, it would be Emo Monk. We'll leave it at that.
Fascinating stuff. Yeah. So Western metaphysics / philosophy is mental masturbation. Socrates was a mental.
Agreed.
Yeah, I guess there is that kind of thing of like all of philosophy is footnotes from Plato. I can't remember who said that, but like
Alfred North Whitehead.
Right. Am I right in thinking Whitehead is one of your favorite philosophers?
Alfred North Whitehead is my hero, but I don't.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I can feel that. I get like you're channeling him. Okay, interesting. Explain who he is, and like you should popularize him more. I think I would love it if you made a video about him. Like,
Sigma's done a better job actually at kind of like advancing some of the Whiteheadian views. But Alfred North Whitehead was Bertrand Russell's math teacher. He was a 20th century math genius. Who he was part of the logicist movement. These guys they believed that mathematics was reducible to logic, and the movement failed. It was taken as a fail with the, Gödel's incompleteness theorems. And then Whitehead, he kind of took this like continental turn very late in his life, and he devised a philosophic system where it's very anti-Aristotelian, so it stands in opposition to like a substance ontology, where if you kind of quantize things down to like the foundation, you'll find like substances that are involved in these accidental relations with one another. Whitehead believed in a kind of a process or an event ontology. Right. And so it's an entirely different way of looking at not just philosophy, but he was a scientist, right? He had like his own theories of relativity, which he presented to Einstein, and they went over his head.
Okay, fascinating. Fuck.
Yeah, it's too much. Like, we'd need like a couple hours. Just
You
to
think
talk
he's
about.
someone who's been like maligned by history? You think there's like he's someone who's gets less attention than they deserve?
Okay, no. What I'm going to say is that the scope of Whitehead's work was so vast that a bunch of different people have taken up parts of it, much like Hegel, right? Whitehead was a theologian, like he turned to God as like an integral part of his metaphysic, but he also had a lot to say about math, the sciences. He had his hand in everything, right? And the movement that has had the most kind of staying power thus far has been the process theology, which is a bunch of kind of like Baptist Christian, like neoclassical types like Charles Hartshorne, who they've focused on his theological views. And Whitehead brought in a lot of woo-woo new age tards,
Right.
like a lot of new agey guys like Footnotes to Plato, who's a kind of hit or miss YouTube channel, but he's an authority. Matt Siegel, he's an authority on Whitehead scholarship, but I believe he's a bit new agey for me. I like to play up like Whitehead's more like his philosophy of science aspect.
Right. Okay. I mean, I think one interesting thought experiment, if you like, is to consider the idea that like every race has a school of magic that they get good at. So the gypsies have fortune telling, and the Chinese have I Ching, and the blacks have voodoo, and Jews have Kabbalah. White people, Europeans, have science, have this scientific, empirical. When you realize that like science is just another branch of magic, it just happens to be the best one because it fucking works. Then it kind of reframes your thinking. Or at least it did for me. So Sigma, do you have any comments on Whitehead? You seem to be like a Whitehead expert, or like from what Dismal is saying, a Whitehead.
Like you said, I've
popularizer.
Popularizer. I mean, kind of point you in a direction, but I have attempted to further some of his ideas. But unlike Whitehead, I think Whitehead grounds his theories in too much solidity. It's too much materialism, right? So I break it down even further and trying to ground a metaphysic in ambiguity, and that it explains or helps, you could say, explain our persistent or obsession with attempting to ground ourselves in the first place. As you guys are probably,
how do you fucking square that circle? Because that sounds fascinating, but like just explaining it to me, remembering I'm kind of retarded and have a very basic.
No. Actually, dude, you already have probably some of it. Think about quantum theory.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody talking about the quantum world.
Yeah.
You guys really think about the world that they're describing? It's ambiguous, right? It has some structure, but it's a world of probabilities, fields, trajectories, and interactions. Right, where the substances of things, although there is some there, right, so you can talk about it, it's very, very little. And the further we go down, right, as they have tried to extrapolate, the more and more ambiguous it becomes, right? So now they're just calling things forces, right, spins, right, up, down, so on and so forth, even more ambiguous. And this is part of how I do that, and grounded in our notions of the world. Simply, right, is that you're imagining the world is ambiguous. It's a generic term, right, to which you are endlessly attempting to define.
Fuck, that's fascinating. Okay, yeah. If you have anything about that, I'll definitely read it. That sounds like a complete.
I just want to not to like cut in, but I want to address something too in the comments, which I think it's a kind of a fair point against me that I've heard many times. Rogue Trader says, "Wouldn't CD be a pleb commoner if he can't even get a job in Canada?" Now, again, I'm willing to bite the bullet on that. Like, I could
baited.
Yeah, it's okay, but like it's warrants a fair address, I guess. I mean, I think it's like an honest question, but it doesn't matter, right? Like, if Jimmy Savile told you that 2 + 2 is 4, like, would you put the conclusion in question? Like, oh well, It's just I'm either right or I'm not, and I believe that I am. I mean, I do have some aristocracy, or I won't say aristocracy, but we had clans back in Scotland. Like they weren't complete fucking dredges or like Untermensch. But again, we got sent out to the New World and we lost our status for the most part. And now I'm like kind of forced. It just is what it is. But I don't attach myself. Even if I was some 80 IQ, like fentanyl junkie on the street making this argument, the argument's either true or it's not.
Right.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, at least there's consistency in what you're saying there. I totally get what you mean.
It's totally detached from my personage and my personal life. It's just like it's either sound world.
But as you said before, that seems to be a lot of your stuff, and like you seem much more concerned with the actual idea of objective truth than you do with your personal situation, if that makes sense.
It seems that way from your position, perhaps.
Yeah, no, definitely. But like,
I'll take that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And if you were a 17-year-old lad living in Ontario, Canada, in Brampton, alongside the Jeets, with a bunch of untapped potential, as young people often have, but having to exist in the weird, fucked up MMORPG that you make content about, like, what advice genuinely do you have for young men?
Literally seppuku, and I know that people will call me like, I'm not even joking. Like, I'm not even trying to be funny. Like, I'll defend this. Again, I'm kind of like an Eastern guy. Like, I like how the Japanese look at it. They're like, oh, they put the group before themselves, and they're like, they have too much pride to be reduced to their like carnal desires, to be like gooners and room rotters, house rotters. They're like, man, I'm better than this. It's not dignified. I think I'm kind of like statistically painted into a corner here. Like I'm not just gonna house rot for, call it Fed shit. Okay, so then when so look at who else. So Seneca was a Fed. David Hume was a Fed. Schopenhauer, Confucius, these guys were Feds. Like, no, dude, you have fucking brain rot from Christian moral fag ethics. And so you think what I'm saying is like federal shit.
Oh, this is so good now, guys. The link is in the chat. If you got shit to say to Dismal, don't just type it like a little bitch, right? Call in,
Tommy Tester,
allow Google to access your microphone for a hot second and tell him to his face, or at least to his ears. Like, this is like give me some content, guys. Holy shit.
Yeah, Schopenhauer.
So, people in the chat took that very negatively. You need to grow up.
Yeah, because they're Western tards. Their brains are infected with Westernism. That's why they think.
Well, I mean, what's so interesting to me, right, is that I'm coming at this from a place of like, I really like Friedrich Nietzsche.
We would have thrown these guys off a pyramid. We would have organ harvested these people.
So I actually agree with you in some respects, especially when it comes to what you might call like Christian.
Tell that to a kamikaze, you know what I mean? Or the Japanese.
No, I get what you're saying. When it comes to Christian slave morality, I kind of get what you're saying. However, I do think that they're right to have a visceral reaction towards you, because what you're promoting or what you're proposing is life denialism. It's actually it's not
no.
At all.
What did Nietzsche say? What these guys saying life denial haven't read a single word of Nietzsche and couldn't get through 5 pages of it if they tried. Nietzsche said, quote, he said, "One should die proudly when it is not possible to live proudly anymore." Period.
Yeah.
Nietzsche agreed with so Nietzsche was a Fed. That's like, you have to be consistent. These guys they're just Western tards. Like, there's nothing more. Their brains are infected by Western moral cuckoldry.
So that's actually fascinating. It gives a really, really interesting window, insight into what you think and how you think. That's fascinating.
But you mean, just to clarify, you mean Eastern philosophy here, and not how these societies look today, because China, Korea, and Japan all have huge issues with incel situations and otaku lifestyles. becoming
real Buddhism is obviously not like the main philosophy in China. It would be Confucian and it would be atheistic, but Buddhism has this kind of nihilistic, especially other schools like not Zen, but like certain schools of Buddhism have this very much like kind of death embracing kind of thing that is very Nietzschean in a weird way that he's kind of promoting. But you know, I can totally see why people.
It's Aryan. What I'm saying is Aryan through and through. All these people that are countering this are all like secular Christians.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I obviously
what I'm
can't
saying
in
is
good
that, you know,
faith, like promote that though. Like, I obviously can't in good faith encourage a 17-year-old kid to do the same. I would say my advice would just be to think locally, stop concerning yourself with big global issues, realize that yeah, maybe everyone is fucked, but you don't necessarily have to be, and to start thinking magically about the world as discussed previously. I just want to, I have to make a clear delineation. Like, I'm not encouraging the same thing, but the reason I talk to people like Dismal is because this shit's fucking fascinating. His worldview, whether you agree with it or not, is entirely philosophically coherent.
I would never ever just to clear my name. I would never ever go and try to influence an individual because that would, first of all, it's illegal and I don't break the law. Second of all, it's not
you
for
were
you to
answering
decide.
a hypothetical question I was asking.
Exactly right. It's a philosophic position, which, you know, it's very different. And number two, it should be for the person to decide for themselves, like if somebody else had to encourage and try to push, then you would have missed the whole point essentially of it. Like, I think every person, and this was Nietzsche's view, he was quite clear about this, at some point in your life you should choose to end it, even if that means in old age. But what's really life denying is rotting away with a tube shoved up your urethra while you're
life for life's sake.
Yeah,
exactly. Life for life's sake is like meaningless. There needs to be something that it's directed to. And
you got to cut it off at some point.
Yeah, like in Zarathustra, he talks about dying at the right time. So I would have to push back about like a 17-year-old because I don't think that that's like necessarily the right time for most people
at all, which is why I use that age, because that age is untapped potential. At 17, no matter how fucked your life is, no matter how broke you are, no matter how fat you are, no matter how short you are or ugly you are, at 17 there is potential there, and that's
I don't agree.
I see. Well, of course, you're like a genetic essentialist in that sense. So it's like, but I even think we're moving more into a future where it's going to be even more possible for someone to hustle their way into being whatever the fuck
if
they
somebody
want.
If somebody doesn't have the fortitude or the aptitude to achieve success, simply affording them more time is inconsequential. Whereas if somebody had a lot of talent, like somebody like you, for example, or whatever, you might have a shitty life up till 70 and still have a better chance at doing something in that last couple of years than somebody who's just like a dredge. That you're 15, you're still a subhuman, you're still
right. So in my head, I'm imagining this 15-year-old as this like abundant fountain of endless, limitless potential, and in your head, it's just a 15-year-old fucking spur.
Well, it could be the case, or it could not be. That might be the case, or it might not be. But the age is almost trivial. Like, who cares if he's 15? He's either a crack slipper.
I think
or
it
he's
matters.
Not.
I think it matters so much with the age, because again, the age implies, like, you know, time is time to fix it and time to turn it around. Like, I mean, again, it's just it's what this essentially boils down to. Like, metaphysically, it's just glass half full, glass half empty. You know what I mean? We're not going to get anywhere with this, but I am fascinated by the way you think, and I do. I'm a viewer of your content. You take that for what it, you know. He's promoting depressing teenagers' worldview and needs to grow up. Guys, the link is
not an
in
argument.
the chat. Call in. And he's right. That's not technically, like, you know, in
It's
terms
not
of
even an
logic,
argument.
that's not an argument.
You're just saying I don't like it.
Yeah. Let's see, you know, and I think this is why it's so interesting, because for people to come in here, they will have to like meet you on some kind of intellectual ground. I think that will be intimidating for a lot of people, right? Like, you have to agree to talk to people on their level when they come in, right? You can't be hitting people with like big words, big 5-syllable words. Nietzsche was a Anti-moral idiot. Yeah, this would be the typical kind of Christian position or Abrahamic position. I don't think this is a good critique of Nietzsche personally. I think it's actually a trash critique of Nietzsche. I think the best critique of Nietzsche, perhaps the only really devastating critique of Nietzsche, comes from Carl Jung, but I won't waste time talking about that now. In the Gospels, they didn't add to the New Testament. They didn't add to the New Testament. Jesus killed quite a few people. Okay, well, dude, seriously, come on, like the fuck, like I'm being baited now. But guys, look, great man theory holds weight. What's great man theory? Oh, that history is made by great men. Yeah, okay.
It's like a top down, like history viewed from the top down.
Steven 1997, call in to the chat. Like, this guy isn't promoting free speech, he's promoting violence and shit.
He's just needling. He's just needling. He's just needling. Just like he's needling.
Let's see. Most people who get angry at self-deletion are people who can't even imagine having anything to self-delete.
Well said.
Wow. Interesting. Dude,
I mean, you're gonna die anyway. You're gonna fucking die anyway. You think you're going to like take the adrenochrome and live forever like Woody Allen? Like, no, you're dead meat anyway. The only thing is time.
I think there is such thing as a noble death, right? There's such a thing as a beautiful death. I just think that should we say suicide in its modern context is so bleak and so depressing and so like not what I'm talking about when I envisage something like that. So
people that don't understand this, they've simply never seen anybody go out really bad or die like a very undignified death. Every death I've ever seen of my grandfathers, my aunt, they were very undignified. They fought too long. It cost too much money. It caused way too much grief. Those memories of these people are implanted forever. Unfortunately, you always have those memories of those lost, relatives. And the thing is that I don't think that stops at physical ailments. I think that a lot of people who are just perma-rotters, they are, they have the spiritual equivalent of terminal cancer. A lot of people that listen to your show probably are in this situation. They wake up and goon until their dick stops working, and then they stare at a phone. Like,
I mean, there is a gooning epidemic. There is a phone addiction epidemic. I mean, I think my audience will be just like anybody else's audience in that respect, but I don't know. So guys, let me know in the comments if you're having gooning addictions. But like that's so interesting, man. That's so interesting. What is the end goal for you? Where do you see things going? Obviously, I don't want to talk about it like too personally, but like you kind of have a family forming on the way a little bit. Like, do you think having a kid will change the way you think about the world?
I mean, who's to say? I don't know about that, but I think where we're going, like in the overall, is probably a lot smaller populations. It's assured, actually.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't. My own life is just a kind of an aimless like wander. It's who knows.
You have this ability, and dude, there's something about you having Riz. You have this weird ability to be like extremely bleak and very poetic at the same time.
Dude, I've lost so many jobs in the last. Like, I could just lose my job right now. Like all of it is very indeterminate. It's such an entropic. Like, I'm just here right now in the moment.
But isn't that beautiful? Weirdly.
Yeah, it takes my mind off. Like when I'm here hanging out with you, I've totally forgot about my life.
I mean, dude, all of those Eastern philosophies, they all center around the idea that actually, like, even though we imagine the future as this great big expanse stretching out in front of us, and we imagine the past as this like time worm behind us of all the places we've ever been, in reality, you can't point to those things. They don't actually exist. The only thing that ever exists is like the now and the current moment. And if you have faith, that kind of covers the future. And if you have like, I don't know, if you like have some kind of thing to cover the past, then you don't schizo out so hard. I mean, like, that's the Eastern philosophy. And I guess in a weird way, that's what the Western magical tradition is about. When you get into when you get into anything past that, like, you don't think, for example, that because you can sit in the present moment here right now with your mind distracted off all the bullshit and just be at peace and be happy and maybe even laugh or maybe think of something that makes you feel good or whatever, you don't think that that has some inherent meaning to it, that there's some inherent, like, that in and of itself.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, even that kind of present, the bliss of the present where you become immersed, even that is fleeting, right? Like, in the kind of Buddhist maxim, it's like everything is fleeting.
Yes.
Including that contentment, like, with the present. It's like, it's like almost becoming immersed in a film. But now that you are talking about it, I remember my stupid life now. And I don't hate my life. I'm not trying, like, I don't hate my life, whatever. But I'm just saying, like, I remember, like, that I got to go to work tomorrow and it's gay and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
It is gay and it is fake. It is definitely
you like pulled me away from my bliss, you know? You pulled me out of the nirvana.
Bobby, how you doing?
I'm Bobby. I'm doing fine, man. I'm a fan.
Thank you. You have a question for Dismal or just anything you want to say about, you feeling particularly blackpilled at the moment?
Well, yeah, I would call myself a black pillar, but I would say more like a clear pill guy. Like, I'm not like depressed or anxious, but I do not see like very good stuff at all. I'm comfortable with the black pill, I'd say.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and I like very much what this guy, Collective Dismal, is saying. I like it a lot, and I've taken notes, and it's very good, man.
Thanks, if I can say, for those of you who can handle it, Collective offers some like real fucking insight into some shit that you would like really not expect. Some like genuinely unexpected and decent insight. Steven 1997, this is the guy who's criticizing.
He's just needling.
No, I'm saying you believe in tribalism, nationalism, universal. Okay, I'm just getting into this guy's fucking yeah. Okay, all right, cool. Well, the panel is scared of truth, so they're ignoring me. Steven, we're not. We want you to call in, buddy. If you don't call in, then we can't talk to you. I'm not going to go through every single one of your comments in the chat and address them. That's
I think he's just taking the piss.
Yeah, probably not. Probably like.
By the way, George, your opinions have made my life objectively better. By the way.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I really that means a lot. That's fucking dope. All right, guys. No challenges then. Dismal, you've literally taken the W just from being like nobody wanted to step into the arena with you, which is kind of dope.
Yeah, I mean, I've done blood sports before. I went on Thomas White's channel. Everybody, he's on a suspension right now, but everyone go subscribe to the Woman Question. Thomas White, best fucking podcast going right now.
Nice.
Subscribe to Western Decline
today or after this.
Everybody go subscribe to Western Decline. If you're not already, you should be.
I will try and get Western Decline and Thomas White and yourself all back on here at some point for a mega epic Blackpill incel stream. But let's just all cleanse ourselves with sage before we do that, because holy shit, that's gonna take some energy out of what the fuck. There's this chick Amy just shows up at the end of the stream like, what's the question? I don't know, Amy. What's the answer, mate? You know what I mean? What is life, bro? Like, what the fuck is life? Man. Debate Jay Dyer if you're honest. Dismal, are you open to doing like big debates and stuff with people? Because I can genuinely host, like, try and host and get like as big a people as possible.
You know what? Debate me, bro. Like, debate me bros are, it's kind of an art form in itself. I'm not terrible at it. I've done it. I'm not great at it. Like, Jay Dyer is a midwit, but he would probably beat me in a debate. Like, he's just like very rehearsed and he's good at that type of
thing. He has all the logic past that he can like walk you down.
Well, no, I would run circles around him in terms of like an understanding of logic, but it's hard to on the spot kind of just like string it all together. And he's very good at that, like credit where it's due. What I'm not necessarily like, if I got called out or somebody was like dead set on me, I like civil discourse, even where people disagree. I hate debates. They're very fucking cringe and like, oh, you got to debate this guy, bro. Let's just have some civil discourse. Yeah, let's have like a civil discourse like they used to do 100 years ago, you know?
Fuck yeah. Well, look, man, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. If anybody else has got anything they want to say, you know, forever hold your penis. And I'll see you guys in the next one.
Well, I don't have